Ciao a tutti e benvenuti a HOMO FABER Italia, il primo programma videocast che vuole esplorare il percorso personale e professionale di italiani che hanno avuto successo all'estero. Conduce Lidia Panarello. Welcome to a new episode of HOMO FABER Italia, the first podcast that aims to explore personal and professional path of successful Italian which made part of their career abroad. Today, we're pleased to have with us Mr. Marco Alverà, CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Snam, one of the world's leading energy infrastructure operator and provider in the world. Mr. Alverà is a former banker, entrepreneur, and now CEO. He had a very outstanding career. He also founded Netesi, a broadband company which was sold to Telecom, and now he operates in the energy space for more than 20 years. Mr. Alverà, in addition to lead the listed company Snam, is also belongs to the board of directors of many NGOs and companies like SP Global. So today, we're very happy to have you with us. Welcome, and where are you and how are you, Mr. Alverà?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm in San Donato Milanese in Piazza Santa Barbara 7, which is the headquarters of Snam in Milan. It's also called, affectionately, it's called Metanopoli, which means the gas city. It was founded by Enrico Mattei, who was the founder of Snam.
Great. Please help us understand what Snam does and what does the role as a CEO entails, especially for a listed company in the energy space.
Okay, so a CEO today has to worry 80 or 90% of his time about people, about the people inside the company, about the teams, and about the relationships and the people outside of the company. As we move towards a digital, interconnected world, the human dimension becomes even more important than before. We had old system where you had pyramids, hierarchy, order, organization, and the CEO could afford to use the rigid rules of the schemes of the organization. In today's world, any type of organization is a lot more fluid. And so the CEO essentially has to play football, be on the pitch with his team, but also be the coach on the side of the pitch. And so really that's the essence of what a CEO should do. The role of companies is finally evolving to become much more social. And so the CEO has to take care of the social responsibility. And ultimately, the goal of a company is to help all the people working inside the company and with the company fulfill their maximum potential. And so that's the ultimate role of the CEO, is to make his teams grow, the people working in the company grow, and as the people and the teams grow, the company also grows. Snam is no exception. This is how I spend my time, and this is really what we are about. The word company comes from Latin, cum panis, and it means a group of people who want to eat bread together, people who want to sit around a table and share their meal. This is the origin of the name company, and this is the future of what companies should stand for. So this is what Snam does. We have our purpose, which is energy to inspire the world, which is written on every wall of our organization, physically and virtually. And we always have this as the payoff in any presentation that we do. And we have put it in the bylaws of the company. Apart from this purpose of inspiring the world, and which for us means turning the world into a net zero carbon world, so fully decarbonized, we are the largest transporter of energy outside of Russia. Gazprom is number one, Snam is number two, TransCanada is number three, and then we have some US companies. So we are the second largest energy transport company in the world. We're also one of the largest energy storage companies in the world. And we're racing as fast as we can to bring Snam to net zero by 2040, but also to bring our customers to net zero as soon as we can, because the race is on and we really need to save this planet.
Sounds super exciting. Let's take now a step back and let's start from the beginning, from where you started. So what have you studied during university? And tell us a bit about also your first experience in the professional world in investment banking.
So I was born in New York, and then I moved to Milan, then I moved back to the UK, and I went from an American school to an Italian school to an English school, and I did the IB, which has the luxury that you can pick and choose your subject. And I studied a lot of philosophy at school. And I couldn't really decide. I wanted to study philosophy, I wanted to study economics and finance, and I wanted to study architecture and become an architect. And I was really torn between these three topics when I discovered that at the London School of Economics, you could study philosophy and economics at the same time. So that was an easy choice, 2 versus 1. And that's how I started studying that. At the LSE, I was torn between 2 types of careers. I really wanted to go and work for Shell because at the time they were offering, probably still today, very attractive entry programs for young graduates where you would live around the world in very exotic places, helping the search for oil and gas. And at the same time, I was really attracted to finance because I saw how finance was involved in every aspect of the world. And so I thought if you want to have an impact through finance, you can have an impact. And so I spent a whole summer debating. I had an offer to join Shell and an offer to join Goldman. And at the end, I picked Goldman because it was probably a little more glamorous as well. Probably they paid a little better. But it was really the investment banking this was in 96. Investment banking was really taking off as an industry. And that's how I started.
Great. And now that you have more than 20 years of professional experience in the energy space, what has kept you so interested in this sector, and what is so attractive about the energy space today?
The energy space has been a rather boring sector from an employment perspective. So all the talents have gone to investment banking, to management consulting, to B2C firms, now to technology. What I've found in energy is really the opportunity to lead massive projects and massive teams. So at a very young age, I was investing billions of dollars in Alaska, in Ecuador, in Brazil, Argentina. I lived and worked in Africa, in Russia. And this has really given me the chance not only to see the world, to know the world, to understand how at the highest level the world works from a geopolitical point of view. But I've also been able to manage big teams, tens of thousands of people on some of these projects, and really have the ultimate responsibility for some very big projects, billions of dollars. I think cumulatively, I've invested more than $40 billion in projects. This is what it's done to me. So I've had a very interesting and fun career in a sector that wasn't so interesting. But in the last 4 years, everything changed because I went from a situation of being really, really worried about the planet and how we could combine economic growth, huge demographic growth. We were adding 2.5 billion people to the world with the need to get to zero emissions. I just couldn't see how it was possible. And then 4 years ago, I fell in love with hydrogen again. The first time I fell in love with hydrogen was in 2004, but it was a very difficult relationship with hydrogen because it was prohibitively expensive. So I loved it, but I couldn't do much with it because it was costing 60 times more than oil and gas. And so beautiful, but couldn't afford it. And then a couple of colleagues came into my office 4 years ago, and they showed me an Excel chart where hydrogen was coming way down in costs. And they told me in 10 years, maybe it can reach the cost of oil. And I said, forget about it. You're mistaken. This is wrong. Let's redo the maths. There's something that doesn't work in your model. And so we spent a few hours redoing the maths, and they were right. And so it was a wake-up call. I got really excited, started researching, and really came to the view that we can now get to zero emissions, saving lives, creating new jobs, accommodating the new people who will come to live this world in a completely environmentally friendly and renewable way. So it's gone from being a rather dormant sector with a lot of inertia to now being one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting sector in which to work.
On this topic, can you tell us briefly what entails using hydrogen to decarbonize the energy production for our young audience that perhaps doesn't know all the technicalities of this technology?
Yes. Today, the world runs 20% on electricity and 80% on oil, coal, and gas. The electricity is mainly produced by coal and gas. So we need to do 2 things first, which are really urgent, and a lot of people are working on this. And we have in Italy Enel, which is a world-leading renewable company that's doing exactly this. We need to turn the way we produce electricity from coal to renewable, and then we need to grow the market share of electricity, let's say from 20% to the maximum, it will get to 50%. And this has always been the case in the last 10 years. This has always been the narrative. And this, frankly, never worried me. What kept me up at night was the remaining 50% that we cannot electrify. We cannot run a ship on batteries. We cannot run a big airplane on batteries. We cannot make steel and cement with batteries. So I always feared that we were going to have to continue to use oil and gas, more gas than oil, more gas than coal, but ultimately still hydrocarbons, fossil fuels. But what hydrogen does is it behaves exactly like natural gas. So you can use hydrogen to run a ship, to run an airplane, to make steel, to make cement, to heat homes and heat factories. But it's entirely renewable. So instead of being a fossil gas like methane, which is the composition of methane is CH4, so it's carbon plus hydrogen. Hydrogen is pure, it's H2, it's made from water, H2O, you split out the oxygen from the water, and you make it with renewable energy, mainly solar, and it behaves like gas, but it's not fossil and it's renewable. So this is what you do. You can really use the same pipelines, almost the same boilers, the same factories. We put hydrogen into a pasta factory here in Italy, and they made hydrogen pasta. It was sold out in the United States after the New York Times reported this experiment. So it's a beautiful thing because it will allow us to save the planet and to keep the economies going and the cities warm and lit, but without any CO2 emissions.
Doing some researches, I learned that you are about to publish a book on hydrogen in the UK. What are the key messages and what do you aim to communicate on this front?
So the book is called The Hydrogen Revolution. It's coming out from Hodder Studios on the 26th of August. The subtitle is A Blueprint for the Future of Clean Energy. So this book is about what I just told you, how hydrogen will save the world. It's the publisher has written on the back that this is not just another book on climate change. This book will revolutionize the way we think about clean energy. I think they've been overly generous with this. I'm a little more humble than this normally, but I think it's a book where I share my 20 years of experience in energy, trying to bring a very optimistic spin to the story. We don't need to be afraid of the energy transition. We need to embrace it. We need to rush to make it happen. We need to be excited about it. We need to push for this change. There's huge inertia in the sector. There's people who still want to keep the coal plants up and running. There's people who say no to new technologies. I hate people who say no. This book is about yes, about doing, about making things happen. Once we connect the sun of the Saharan desert with our factories through hydrogen pipes, that will be the permanent solution. We will have really renewable energy. The book is also coming out in the United States in September. It's coming out in the autumn in the United States as well with a different publisher.
Very inspiring. We look forward to have a copy for ourselves and for all the audience.
We'll send you a copy.
Great. Let's move now toward, based on your long and extensive professional experience, let's provide some tips and suggestions to our young audience that is approaching now the professional world. And I would like to know, what would you recommend someone, a young Italian that is keen to enter into the energy space and is keen to have a successful career like yours?
I consider myself at not the beginning, but let's say the middle of my career. So let's see how events will unfold in the future before calling it successful. I think what I've benefited from is certainly having several mentors. Mm-hmm. Young people need to bring their innovation, their courage, their vision, their energies, but they need a lot of guidance from the older people. Beware, though, that when you ask for someone's advice, if you don't follow it, they will get really upset. It's just a feature of older people. They're opinionated and they think they're right. And if you do something different from what they've told you, they will be upset. So don't ask too many people for the same advice, because you will get, inevitably, people will tell you different different things, you get confused, and then you will end up upsetting people. But it's really important to identify people you aspire to be like, people you trust, and people always love to help younger people. I spend a lot of my time in events like this today, in schools and universities. I've written a book for children at the elementary school and the scuole medie to talk about the energy transition to them as well. So never be afraid to ask for advice, but don't ask too many people for the same advice. That's one recommendation. The other is that I have benefited from a fun career in a boring sector. And so be aware of joining overcrowded industries. Like if you go and work for a big tech company today, it's very hard to differentiate yourself and to make yourself visible. And it's important to become visible because that's how you will get mentors and bosses to spot you and to help you grow. You need to grow by attraction. You need to grow by making sure people who are successful want to work with you, for you, and want you to work with them and for them. So you need to find your spot in any sector, whether it's in university, at school, or in your first steps in the career. And it's much better to have a fun career in a boring sector than to have a boring career in a fun sector. So don't chase everyone. My other recommendation is to make your CVs look different. I have a pile of CVs in my office here, maybe like 200 or 300 of them. And these are just the people I like. And I keep them physically in a big file that's about to explode as I look at it. And unfortunately, they still all look very similar. I like to see a CV where someone's done a summer job. Maybe he's lived in a strange country for a while doing a project where he's failed and he recovered. When I look at CVs, people coming out of university, they have no work experience, they have no summer experience, they have no nonprofit experience, they have no sport experience. And then how can you choose? There's thousands of people like that. It's impossible to choose. Now it's easier than at my times. You have people like yourself doing these startups, these podcasts, it's easier to learn and to be seen. So be ambitious, be bold. My final piece of advice is to invest time, energy, really quality time into trying to find out what makes you tick. We are much better at doing what we like than what we don't like. And we don't need to be good at everything. No one is good at everything. We need to understand what we're good at, what we like doing, and play from our strengths. A lot of people ask for feedback. They want to know what they're not good at. And it doesn't matter what you're not good at. It matters to find out what you are good at and how to take your strength at a different level.
As you mentioned, the energy space didn't have the same attraction as like the tech industry or maybe financial service space for like young people to join as an early career opportunity. So what would you tell like young people to convince them to join a energy company like Snam?
No, I don't think I need to convince anyone to join energy. I think try to make sure you know what your company stands for and that the management team sticks to what they stand for. Do research. It's really easy now. In 1 hour, you can look at 10 snippets of videos on YouTube. All the CEOs are public, what they say. Look at what the company did and make sure they walk the talk. Many people change their narrative based on the convenience at the moment. Make sure your company, where you're going to work, has a vision, has a future, has a purpose. That's really what I think is important. Of all the achievements that Snam has made, the single most important one is that we have been voted by Forbes as the second best company to work for in Italy. That's the ultimate goal of a company, is to become an attractive workplace. And I think with the same management team, frankly, we could be in the water business, we could be in the railway business, we would have the same excitement. So don't worry too much about the what, worry much more about the why. Having said that, the energy transition is going to be a much bigger revolution than the internet has been because we need to really invest trillions and trillions of dollars. And so it will be very attractive for entrepreneurs, for private equity, for big companies, for small companies, for researchers, for people like you working in financial institutions.
And what have you learned after your 20 years of work experience that you wish you had learned at the beginning of your career?
Look, I was really lucky because I had some great mentors up front early in my career. And so I really learned from them at the beginning, and everything I have seen has been about putting in practice. The single most important rule is that management, careers, life, it's all about fairness. It's all about being fair, treating people fairly, encouraging people to be fair. And then you spread this magic energy that really drives people to perform much better, drives you to perform much better. If you're fair, you want to improve. If you want to improve, you're always raising the bar. And so this is really the essence of everything I've learned.
Mr. Alverà, we are about to conclude. And as I asked my former guests here in this podcast, I would like to ask you, let's say, a funny question. You are half Italian, half American. So is there a typical American Anglo-Saxon trait that, even though you have been living in Italy for quite some time, you have not lost?
I think two traits come to mind. One is never take no as an answer. I kind of hate people who say no. In the energy, a lot of people say no to renewable energies. They say because they don't want the solar panels in their fields, but they say no to gas because gas has emissions. And a lot of bureaucracy tries to stop things. So there's in Italy often a tendency to say no, but we need to turn many, many, many no's into many yeses to get the energy transition done. And I think this is a kind of a bit of an American kind of can-do attitude, kind of the sky's the limit, everything is possible, think big, dream big, act big. I have a little bit of that that I try to promote here in Snam in Italy with the books I write, with the talks I give at universities. And so that kind of optimistic approach, which Italians have because we are the most innovative of managers I meet, the most creative, some of the best doctors in the world, some of the best lawyers in the world. But the other trait I try to keep from the Anglo-Saxon world is governance, is methodology, is being organized. And there was a beautiful advertisement several years ago that said, "Power is nothing without control." It was a tire company that said, you know, there's no point in having power if the car skids because you can't control it. And it's the same with governance. In Italy, we have many, many, many entrepreneurs, many, many success stories, but we have very few big companies. If you look at the big companies, Eni, Enel, Snam, we are big because we have governance. And this is a typical Anglo-Saxon trait. If we can combine the Italian innovation, entrepreneurial spirit, drive, passion with governance, nothing can stop us. And I think this is a little bit what this government is doing to the country. This is, I think we're living the Italian dream. We're living the Italian moment where we can really combine excellence with governance. This is a magic combination.
Great. Mr. Alverà, on behalf of HOMO FABER Italia, I would like to thank you so much for this time and to have participated in our show.
I enjoyed the questions, enjoyed the call. Keep it up. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.